for another edition of the Draper Dialogues here on the AWF Facebook page. So glad you're with us yet again as we interview another AWF superstar. This one I think you're going to enjoy quite a bit. Quick announcement as we get things underway. By popular demand, well, maybe not popular demand, but by a demand nonetheless, this program now available in podcast form. If you just want to get the audio while you're driving or while you're mowing the lawn or whether you're at the gym or what have you, be sure to hit up Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We are on Spotify, Stitcher, and I want to say 7 or 8 other platforms where you can download directly. Up now, the first 2 episodes we did of this program with Downtown PD Brown and our AWF Heavyweight Champion JDX, and more of those are going to be coming in the following days. Joining me today, though, so glad to see him again. It has been a while. My old buddy, my old pal, Chadwick Wentworth III. That's almost a mouthful. Your former name maybe rolled off the tongue a little bit easier. Nonetheless, happy to see you here. How are you doing?
Did you say that we were friends?
We were.
Is that what you said?
We were business associates, I believe, at one time. Were we not? Is your memory starting to lose you there a bit?
I mean, if you go back to the footage, I think that you worked for me. I believe that's what it was.
No.
There was no.
It was the Draper Dynasty, so that would imply that you were actually under my payroll, where I was making sure that you were carrying out the deeds that needed to be carried out in order for our faction to be successful.
I just want to give you a little bit of a heads up, a little bit. I am not a former AWF roster member. I still am a current AWF roster member. I don't think I said former,
did I? Or was that in our social media advertised you as that?
No, this is a message for you specifically, DJ.
Okay.
I am not a former AWF roster member. You know that I will be seeing you at some point in time within the next 6 months. So did you want to adjust your last statement that you had?
Look,
I mean, you can keep it however you want to, but I'm just letting you know that I'll see you soon. So, and you know me probably better than anybody. So you might want to, redact that.
The record going back to, 2013, 2014, really speaks for itself with what happened. And we can look back as to your title reign with that AWF Heavyweight Championship. And I think there's a but-for situation here. I don't know if you would have reached that pinnacle in the company if it had not been but for my assistance at ringside and in the front office.
Again, so I'll respond to the actual professional side, but I'll respond to you directly again. I'm going to see you soon. I'm going to see you soon, and I have no problem with. That's a conversation for another day. You know that I'm the best professional wrestling golfer on the planet. So
JB Trash,
you don't want any part of that, and you also don't want to. You also JB who? Anyways, you don't want to upset me. You know that. You know that once I get upset, bad things happen. And right now, DJ, you are starting to upset me by trying to put yourself over as you were the reason that I was the longest reigning AWF champion in the history of that company. That's correct, right?
I'm just trying to be a little bit nostalgic. Is that all right as we just take a little brief trip down memory lane?
We can do that, but make sure you're accurate though. I didn't need you. I didn't need anybody else. I was the longest reigning AWF heavyweight champion by myself. I did it by myself. That was me. Okay. And at that time, it was Black Stallion. Black Stallion was the longest reigning AWF heavyweight champion. Now,
and never pinned for that title.
Never. So you talk about JDX or whatever that clown's name is. I don't even know who this kid is. walking around with my championship. Mine.
Well, JDX is just a phenomenal young athlete here in this company, and he's making waves, and it's sounding like you want to get him in the ring once
Well,
this
here's
opens
here's
up a bit.
here's where the differences are between some of your compatriots right now comparative to me. He's a great in-ring performer. I take nothing away from what he has done and what he's going to do in the future. But the difference is that me, and you know this better than anybody, am a legit tough guy. Nobody, and you can't deny this. Nobody can go toe to toe with me and fight me man to man. You know that, or am I wrong?
I'm not going to deny that. That's for sure. You and JDX in the squared circle, though, I think would be a hell of a match, to be quite frank. He's got the advantage, though, when it comes to the agility in the ring. You have to admit here, as we mentioned.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing: is I don't go with my opponents and practice my moves for 6 hours with my opponents.
Shots fired.
I'm not hanging out with the guys that I supposedly hate on TV and go practice gymnastics, because that's basically what these guys do, right? I don't need to do that because I can fight. I know how to fight. I'm 6'1", 252 pounds.
I will say this.
Who's going to step?
I think you are the first quote-unquote vet we've had on this show, and I think one of the questions I was going to ask you at some point was what has changed in the sport, and it sounds like you've kind of answered that a little bit already just with these comments that you just made toward the newer generation of athletes.
Well, yeah, because it's business has to evolve. You can't always stay the same. You have to change things up. But there's also a part about I don't have to let you do those things in the ring when you step in the ring with me. I don't have to and they are absolutely right. FTR, right? You know what I'm talking, the tag team, right? Yep. They are talking about how they are bringing legitimacy back into the professional wrestling business, and that's what I am. It's about legitimacy. It's about actually knowing how to wrestle and about knowing how this business works. And this business, for some people, might work for choreographing 87 high spots in the match, right? But when it comes down to it, when it comes down to people actually wanting to see actual fighting, you look at me, Chadwick Wentworth III. You look at me, and that's what I am. I'm a legitimate athlete. I'm a legitimate NCAA scholarship athlete, legitimate former professional football player that happened to go into professional wrestling. The first hybrid athlete to ever be in the state of Minnesota. There was never, ever a 250-pound wrestler in the state of Minnesota doing the things that I was doing. Ever.
Don't let Ken Patera hear that.
Was Ken Patera doing a shooting star press?
Well, the move wasn't invented then. You never know.
I did that. I did that. Me. And still can, but I don't need to. I don't need to do that. Only thing I have to do is let these kids know that I'm gonna shove my size 13 boot down your throat with the bro kick. It's as simple as that. As simple as that.
How about we rewind things a bit? As you mentioned that you indeed aren't a former AWF superstar, though you have been on the roster for a long, long time, and even predating the AWF. You mentioned some of your experience there in the world of sports. Talk about some of those experiences you had, I believe, in football and some of your other endeavors prior to getting into professional wrestling.
Well, I started off as a high school triple sport athlete, varsity athlete, football, basketball, and track, varsity letterman in all sports. And I was offered a full scholarship to play football and basketball, half in football, half in basketball. So I played football and basketball in NCAA on a full ride scholarship. After I was done with college, I gave up sports for about a year or so, and then happened to get invited to a semi-pro tryout. Made the tryout, made a team, and when I was playing semi-pro football, I was National Athlete of the Year in the whole country. I played corner. I led the league in the whole country in interceptions for touchdowns, kick returns for touchdowns, and punt returns for touchdowns. My trajectory was heading towards the NFL. I actually got several offers to try out and go to combines, the actual NFL combine. And about a month before the combine, I blew my right knee out. Totally shredded it. Totally shredded my knee out, and that was the nail in the coffin for my football career. I did the rehab. I didn't want to have surgery because I didn't want to be out. I didn't want to just the surgery aspect didn't look good to me. So I tried to come back and play football. I played another year after shredding my knee. I came back after 9 months. And right before I actually tore my knee up, I went to a training camp for wrestling. So it just happened. I mean, that was like, a blessing in disguise that I did that. My football career was over. So I put 100% into training camp for wrestling, 100% into it. And then the rest is history from there.
What sort of parallels might there be between semi-pro sports like football and the independent wrestling scene? I don't think that many people really understand what goes on, whether it be minor league baseball or independent ball or semi-pro football, which really isn't all that big around Minnesota anyway.
It's not big because Minnesota's really not a football state. Minnesota's a hockey state. So there's not. I mean, if you go down south, even as close as Iowa or Missouri, there's more than 10, 15 semi-pro football teams, and those are fully funded. They're getting paid. Travel expenses are paid. It would be equivalent to minor league baseball. And up in Minnesota, it's just that there wasn't that many football athletes at the professional level. But the comparison would be would be higher. The semi-pro football that I played would be higher than the independent wrestling scene. The semi-pro football would be equivalent to an Impact Wrestling and the Ring of Honor, those types to where you only need a couple tweaks and a little bit of time before you make it to the national level. So it's just everyone's fighting for that one spot. Every team in a semi-pro team might get one or two, maybe two players a year that get pulled up into the NFL ranks. So that would be the difference. To where if you had to compare independent wrestling to a sport, it would be there really isn't one. There's not an organized football that would be the level of local independent wrestling.
I'm gonna say, because I remember was it the Minnesota Fighting Pike in the Arena League existed, I think, for a season. Did they even make it a full season and just the fan base?
They did not. No, they're not. The closest one, and I turned down the offer. It was the Iowa Barnstormers. They were the closest. They were the closest AFL team, and that just wasn't to move to Iowa to uproot myself to not and then also to not. That doesn't guarantee you a trial for the NFL. So it just wasn't in the cards for me. I think like I said, I think wrestling was my trajectory all along anyway, because that's what I always wanted to do. I really didn't have a passion for football. I really didn't have. If I had a passion for it, the NFL would have been a cakewalk. I just didn't have the the heart and the energy to put it. I was just a good athlete. I was an excellent athlete, and but I didn't have the heart and the passion for football. But wrestling is where I put my mind, body, and soul. Everything I had, I put into professional wrestling.
Well, I
still do
suppose
today.
when kids are growing up, there's pee wee football, there's high school football, etc. You
Right,
really
right,
don't get into wrestling until you're an adult, age of majority, able to sign that waiver,
right,
put down that down payment for camp,
right,
and then really dive head first into it. So I suppose when you're
right, right.
entering pro wrestling, you have to have that passion, or else there's really no
You
path
have to.
forward for you.
And I'm thankful. I'm thankful for the way that I was trained. It would not be legal today. You couldn't get away with training kids the way that I was trained. It's just, you would have a lawsuit on your hand. But I just
Give an example. What'd you go through during
uh,
training?
we could not go in the ring. You could not step foot in the ring until we were told that you're qualified to step in the ring. Before we were qualified, we had to learn
And real quick, which
back
training
bump.
camp?
Terry Fox and Eddie Sharkey. They were running a combo camp together. They were the head trainers, and they had I started in late spring, early summer, so they had the wrestling ring out in the backyard of Terry Fox's house. The full ring out there, but in the garage and in the driveway, they had collegiate wrestling mats on the ground, on the concrete, and that's where I had to learn how to bump, how to take an arm drag, how to do all. I mean, it was brutal. I mean, it was on the ground, on concrete. So there was no protection, and their thought process was, well, you need to learn how to bump. You don't hurt yourself. If you learn how to do it in the ring, you might do something that you're not prepared for. So you're going to learn how to take this bump on the ground, so that way when you get in the ring, you won't think about it. It'll be easy. That was their thought process. That was just one of the little things that they did.
And I've certainly never been through anything like that, but just seeing videos and whatnot. These days,
Yeah,
I've seen crash pads and stuff like that in training schools. Is that something that you
yeah.
have?
There's nothing. There's no. There was nothing. There's nothing wrong with crash pad. I totally am an advocate for that. I totally, so you can practice specific move set and things that you want to do. But we weren't afforded that luxury. Um, Austin Aries, he started a week before I did at that same camp, and you know him well. And we were together. We were together for about a year, and we had to do all this crazy stuff, and then the rest is history after that.
Just looking back at history, seeing some of the names come through that era, like you and Aries and Mitch Paradise, and I'm sure we could just go
Yep,
on and on
yep,
and on. Do you ever think back just, well, when
yep.
it comes to independent wrestling over the last generation, I suppose, in the state of Minnesota, there really probably wasn't an era that just was stacked with talent like there was in that
Right, yeah.
couple year period.
Hey, and here's the reality. I
Pete
try to
Hughes, how could
explain
I
this to
forget
people, and
him?
they kind of Pete. Oh, for sure, Pete. That's my guy. Yeah, Pete Hughes for sure. But we started at a time when professional wrestling was dirty, and the society didn't like it. It was after the Vince McMahon admitted it was fake, the steroid scandal. People really turned off on wrestling. I mean, it was like trying to advertise for a show. And can I put a poster up? No, we don't want anything to do with professional wrestling. Comparative to now, where wrestling is mainstream now, where it's worldwide accepted as a form of entertainment. Now, transplant people, and you put Black Stallion versus Austin Aries on mainstream TV right now. You could sell ads on that. I mean, that could be a pay-per-view main event, because we were pulling in people just off our work ethic. People were coming to see us when no one really wanted to admit that they liked wrestling. And so the people, the guys that are, and girls that are just getting started in this business right now, they should not take it for granted at all, because they have the luxury of it being okay to be a professional wrestler, and they have more avenues now to go get jobs. You have multiple platforms now compared to back when I started, where there weren't that many platforms, and it just wasn't accessible for us to get there as easy as it is today. And I don't want to say easy, because I don't want to like shoot on anyone's skills or talents, but it's just timing is everything. And right now the time is hot right now for guys like you said, like JDX. He can go drive down to Florida. He can go to the East Coast to Ring of Honor. He can go down, to Impact. He can go. There's so many options right now, and opportunities that we didn't have.
And that's, I guess, a really good point on just seizing the opportunity. And just looking back through my time as a wrestling fan, I started watching it in the early 90s, just after Hogan's big run, and it really wasn't all that cool. And then all of a sudden I'm watching wrestling, and then I'm in middle school and this stuff's cool again. And then getting into college, and we dropped off just a bit. And I suppose athletes need to realize that things aren't always going to be as they are now, though the potential, I think, is there for a long sustained run, as we've seen with the WWE product evolving, and then with AEW, and then all the independent groups out there. Not to mention, I think when you started, dial-up internet was about probably as good as you got when it come to promoting yourself across the world.
Yeah, and I was, I mean, I'm not that old to where, like back before,
well, I didn't say you were sending out faxes in order to get booked.
No, we had our, Terry Fox had a website, and, for his training camp and all, but anyways,
never got that full domain name though.
Yeah, right. You have to strike while the iron is hot. And some of these guys that are right now, my advice to them would be, you have to make an attempt right now. If your goal is to get to the next level, now is not soon enough. You have to do it. You have to jump on it right now before it's too late. Because essentially the business of professional wrestling is, wrestling doesn't need you. Wrestling doesn't need me. It doesn't need anybody. Think about the best. Who's the best worker in Minnesota right now? Who do you think is the best worker in Minnesota right now, off the top of your head?
Well, JDX has of course our AWF heavyweight title. So how about we just say him at risk of not offending anyone?
Okay, so JDX, right?
Don't let Eric Cannon hear that I said that. By the way,
there are. I won't. Okay, yeah. So JDX, great worker, but there's also 100 other JDXs out there right now. He's not and again, I'm not he's a great worker. I'm not down talking him. I'm just saying, and you can say let's use me. So let's use me instead of him. Ring of Honor doesn't need CW3. Impact doesn't need CW3. WWE doesn't need CW3. I mean, it's just there are so many independent wrestlers out there today that they can sit back and just say, hey, okay, we're gonna close our eyes and pick one guy. Or like WWE, they're rarely taking independent guys right now, because they want to home grow their own workers from scratch. There might be a few here and there that are high, like indie names, but other than that, they want to home grow their own people. So with these guys, right now is the time. Right now, just to go for it. Put all your chips in. JDX, put all your chips in. Right, travel, go drive or fly to Philadelphia. Go to Ring of Honor, do their workout, and try to get a job. Don't wait. Don't say, "Well, I need to put more ring time in and see if I get better, and then I'll try to go next year," because it might be too late, and they might have already filled that spot already with 4 different guys. So go right now. Put all your chips in. Bet on yourself, because no one else is going to. Bet on yourself. Put your chips in. Airwolf, Angel Dorado, JDX, Riley Jackson, all these guys. Just, if your goal is to make it to the next level, don't wait for anybody to invite you in. You go take your spot. Drive to Florida if you need to, and walk into the performance center. Drive into and hey, I'm a worker. I want to come to your camp and try out. What do you got to lose? There's nothing to lose. I mean, either they take you or they don't. Then you just come back but don't wait for that opportunity, or don't wait for an invite to be an extra on TV.
And that is where we will stop things today with our conversation with CW3 Chadwick Wentworth III. This was a good opportunity for me to take a trip down memory lane, wax a bit nostalgic about some of the times that we had back, when I was in the managerial capacity in this company, in addition to doing what I do now with the play-by-play and ring announcing duties. Had some fun back then. You're not going to want to miss part 2 of this interview when we get real with Chadwick Wentworth III, talking about some of the recent current events, specifically the injustice, the racism that we still have, not just in our world, but specifically some of the things that he's experienced as a professional wrestler, and frankly, some of the progress that we've made in the sport as it relates to opportunity for athletes of color, and frankly, some of the work that we still, all of us, have yet to do. Again, this program now available in podcast form: Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and many other places that you can find and download podcasts. DJ Draper here, signing off for the Draper Dialogues on the AWF Facebook page. We'll catch you next time.